In the depths of the Galactic Union, an alliance of civilizations spanning the stars, a silent war raged in the shadows. Ancient species, many of whom had mastered the art of war for millennia, began to hear rumors of a growing threat in the farthest reaches of the galaxy. The war-hardened Drakkar, with their biomechanical bodies, had begun to consolidate power across star systems, while the enigmatic Xylan, a race of telepathic manipulators, subtly infiltrated the political halls of the Union. But none of the galaxy's oldest and most fearsome races were prepared for the emergence of a new force. Humanity, with their youthful arrogance and untamed potential, had become a beacon in the dark. They had caught the attention of the Union's Council, a body of the galaxy's oldest and most influential species, for the very first time. But it wasn't their technological prowess or their sheer numbers that were drawing attention. It was something far more potent, something more primal and dangerous, Earth's finest, the culmination of all the genetic and evolutionary power ever accumulated by humankind. General Kale of the Drakkar Empire, a veteran of countless wars, had been one of the first to recognize the threat humanity posed. Standing in the dimly lit war room of his flagship, he stared at the holographic projection of Earth, the blue planet now a target, surrounded by fleets of ships ready for conquest. The ancient Drakkar Empire had never faced an adversary quite like this before. Humanity was young, barely a blip in the history of the galaxy, but their potential was undeniable. Word had spread of the terrifyingly adaptive nature of the human race, capable of surviving the harshest of environments and thriving in the most unimaginable circumstances. Humanity had already begun colonizing distant worlds, their terraforming and engineering skills pushing them into territories once thought too inhospitable. Their aggression will be their undoing, General Kale muttered to himself. But we must ensure they do not become a thorn in our side. Across the galaxy, the leaders of the Xylan were equally intrigued. The telepathic beings, with their ability to weave thoughts like complex threads, had sensed the rise of something extraordinary on Earth. They could feel the undercurrent of a power that hadn't yet revealed itself to the universe, but would undoubtedly reshape the future. It was a force of will that, when unleashed, would rival their own mental prowess. It wasn't technology or physical strength that intrigued the Xylan, it was humanity's unyielding spirit. The Earthlings could evolve, adapt, and innovate at a pace faster than any species the galaxy had seen. But what truly unnerved the Xylan was the resilience of the human mind, a mind capable of extraordinary feats of survival and creation. And then, there were the humans themselves. With Earth becoming a hotspot for galactic politics, the time had come for them to defend their world against the growing threats. The United Earth Defense Coalition, UEDC, an amalgamation of humanity's best soldiers, scientists, and strategists, had been formed to protect their world and the colonies they'd established. Dr. Lucille Harper, a leading geneticist with the UEDC, had spent her career studying humanity's potential. As the head of the coalition's bioengineering division, she had access to cutting-edge technology and the brightest minds of the human race. The Earth's greatest weapon wasn't in its ships or its advanced weaponry, it was the human spirit, and Harper knew just how to unlock it. She had already begun to experiment with the untapped potential of the human genome, creating a new breed of soldiers, the Earth's finest. These were not ordinary humans. They were soldiers infused with the best traits of humanity's evolutionary history: enhanced strength, endurance, heightened intelligence, and unparalleled adaptability. Through sophisticated genetic modifications, Harper had unlocked the hidden capabilities of human biology, crafting superhuman soldiers with the best qualities of Earth's history. As Dr. Harper looked out over her team of scientists working in the labs beneath the surface of the UEDC's flagship, she smiled grimly. They had just completed the first successful trials, and the results were nothing short of astonishing. The Earth's finest were born, warriors capable of feats no other species could fathom. The only problem now was convincing the galaxy that humanity's new weapons were not something they wanted to face. As the leaders of the Drakkar and the Xylan began to strategize their next moves, they had no idea that the true power of Earth was still hidden, waiting to be unleashed. But as whispers of this new humanity spread through the Union, it was clear that the galaxy was about to face a force unlike any it had ever encountered. Humanity was not just a young species anymore, they were evolving into something far greater. And this new breed, with the power of Earth's finest, was ready to defend its home and claim its place in the stars. The time for peace had passed. The era of humanity's ultimate weapon had arrived. Across the galaxy, the tension between the established powers and humanity's growing influence was palpable. The Drakkar Empire, long accustomed to ruling with an iron fist, began massing fleets near the outer rim, readying themselves for an invasion of Earth's territories. General Kale, still recovering from his initial shock at the human potential, had now become obsessed with one question: how could a species so young pose such a threat? The answer, he feared, lay within the human mind, a mind capable of adapting and overcoming any obstacle, a mind that had already proven to be a force of nature in the galaxy. Meanwhile, on the capital world of the Xylan, a race of beings known for their calculating logic and telepathic prowess, the Xylan High Council convened in secret. Among them sat Queen Orinthia, the sharpest of her kind and one who had long viewed the human race with a mixture of curiosity and disdain. To the Xylan, emotions were a weakness, yet they had always been fascinated by the raw, untamed spirit of humankind. Orinthia believed that humanity's unrelenting drive to survive and evolve could either be their downfall or their greatest asset. The Xylan had long controlled the delicate political balance of the galaxy through manipulation and espionage, never once facing a true, direct challenge to their influence. The rise of humanity, however, was different. The Earthlings were unpredictable, their actions often driven by impulses and a fierce desire for freedom, traits that the Xylan couldn't fathom or control. Their question was not whether humanity would rise, but how quickly they could adapt to the challenges ahead. As the threat of war grew ever closer, humanity's leaders gathered to devise a strategy. Dr. Lucille Harper's work on the Earth's finest was beginning to draw the attention of military commanders. Her super soldiers, genetic marvels designed to harness the pinnacle of human potential, were still in their infancy, but their progress was accelerating at a rate that even Harper herself couldn't have predicted. What began as a small-scale project to enhance a select group of soldiers had quickly turned into an all-out initiative to produce humanity's ultimate weapon, an army like no other. General David Thorne, a decorated war hero, was among the first to test the Earth's finest in live combat exercises. After a year of grueling training, a new breed of soldiers emerged. They could lift twice their body weight with ease, their reflexes were lightning fast, and their intelligence allowed them to process and adapt to combat situations faster than any machine or artificial intelligence could manage. They were the epitome of human evolution, capable of blending strength, intellect, and instinct into a single, deadly package. Though the Earth's finest were unmatched in their physical prowess, they still needed leadership, experience, and a strategy to fight against the galaxy's greatest threats. General Thorne, despite his own reservations, knew that the time had come for humanity to step into the galaxy's spotlight and assert its place. The age of Earth's quiet evolution was over. This was a time for war. The UEDC's first true test came when a Drakkar war fleet entered Earth's space, a clear act of aggression. They didn't fire a single shot, at least, not yet. Instead, they simply entered the system and waited. The message was clear: humanity had no place in the galaxy unless they were ready to fight. The UEDC's response was swift. General Thorne's forces, including a newly formed unit of Earth's finest, deployed to the front lines. But before they could launch a counterattack, a strange development occurred. A fleet of Xylan ships, silent and unassuming, appeared at the edges of Earth's defense perimeter, their telepathic presence looming over the planet. At first, there was silence. But then, a voice entered the minds of Earth's leaders. Queen Orinthia spoke, her thoughts sharp and calculating, like a blade against the fabric of the human mind. "We are not here to destroy you," she said, her telepathic voice weaving through the minds of those who would listen. "We are here to offer you a choice. Join us, and we will teach you the true power of the mind. Together, we could rule the galaxy." It was an offer that seemed to hang in the air for days, though only moments passed in reality. The Xylan knew their words could sway even the most hardened of minds, but it would be no easy task with humanity. As much as the Xylan wanted to control the volatile race, they had to understand that humanity's unyielding nature, its tendency to reject control, to embrace freedom at any cost, made them unpredictable. General Thorne stood in front of a holographic map, his fist clenched as he stared down at the potential future of Earth. He knew humanity had never been content to bow before a higher power. Yet, the threat of the Drakkar Empire loomed over them, and if the Xylan were true to their word, they would be more than just a force to contend with, they would be a deadly ally. But at what cost? As Earth's finest prepared for the inevitable conflict, the galaxy held its breath. Would humanity embrace the seductive allure of the Xylan's offer? Or would they stand firm, ready to fight with everything they had for the right to remain free? The stakes had never been higher, and the outcome would set the course of the galaxy for millennia to come. The days following the Xylan's telepathic message to humanity were filled with tension and uncertainty. Earth's leadership was torn. On one side stood those who saw the Xylan offer as an opportunity for rapid advancement. With their telepathic prowess and centuries of knowledge, the Xylan could guide humanity into an era of peace and prosperity. On the other side were the staunch defenders of humanity's sovereignty, led by General Thorne, who saw any alliance with the Xylan as a form of subjugation, a denial of the very freedom that made humanity unique. Dr. Lucille Harper, ever the pragmatist, knew that humanity was at a crossroads. The Earth's finest were already showing unprecedented potential, but could they stand up to the combined might of the Drakkar and the Xylan? Despite her reservations about the Xylan's intentions, she saw a sliver of opportunity in the alliance. She had never been one to bow to authority, but she also knew the importance of survival. The question wasn't just about whether humanity could survive, it was about what kind of future they would create for themselves. Meanwhile, the Drakkar Empire had begun to make their move. General Kale, still uneasy about the rise of humanity, had begun amassing his forces in a direct line toward Earth. He knew that the Xylan's diplomatic moves could only delay the inevitable. The Drakkar had no intention of letting a young, unpredictable species like humanity alter the balance of power in the galaxy. The Earth's resistance, though growing in strength, was still in its infancy, and he believed that a quick, decisive strike would cripple the human resolve. The first skirmish came as a shock. A Drakkar fleet, larger than anything humanity had ever seen, made a sudden jump into Earth's orbit. Their ships, enormous and heavily armored, began to broadcast a single, simple message: surrender or perish. It was an ultimatum that left no room for negotiation. General Thorne, who had been preparing his forces for the possibility of war, now had no choice but to act. The UEDC immediately called for mobilization. Earth's finest were deployed first, a new breed of soldiers, fierce and capable. They would defend Earth at any cost, even if that meant facing a superior enemy. What the Drakkar had underestimated, however, was the nature of human adaptability. As soon as the first shots were fired, humanity's finest soldiers, trained for every scenario and enhanced to their maximum potential, responded with a speed and precision that shocked even the Drakkar. The battle raged across Earth's orbital defense ring, as humanity's fleet clashed with the Drakkar's behemoth warships. Earth's finest, clad in their enhanced exoskeletons, fought in ways that defied conventional tactics. Their reflexes were so quick that even Drakkar war machines struggled to land a hit. These were not just soldiers, they were evolving beings, capable of learning and adapting to every new threat in real time. General Kale watched the battle unfold from the command deck of his flagship, his eyes narrowing as he witnessed the surprising resilience of humanity's soldiers. He had expected them to falter under the weight of the Drakkar's overwhelming firepower. Instead, they had adapted, finding weak points in his ship's defenses and exploiting them with precision. The tide of battle began to shift, and for the first time in a long while, Kale felt doubt gnaw at him. Could these primitive creatures really pose a serious threat to his empire? He wasn't sure, but what he did know was that they couldn't be allowed to continue evolving unchecked. In the chaos of the battle, one human ship, the UEDC Fury, was on the front lines, commanding the fight against the Drakkar fleet. On board, Dr. Harper was working furiously in the lab, developing the next stage of humanity's evolution. The Earth's finest soldiers were already beyond human, but the next iteration, the ultimate soldiers, would be something no one could predict. She was working on a serum that would enhance human intelligence, making them not just soldiers, but tacticians, able to outthink their enemies even before they fired their first shot. But while Dr. Harper toiled away, the Xylan watched from the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to intervene. They had sent emissaries to Earth's leadership once again, hoping to secure an alliance with the growing military power. Queen Orinthia, ever the manipulator, believed that humanity could be molded into a powerful ally, but only if they were broken first. Without warning, the Xylan launched their own covert strike against Earth's defenses. Silent, nearly invisible ships slipped into the orbital battleground and began using their telepathic abilities to manipulate the human minds on the battlefield. They targeted the soldiers of Earth's finest, sending waves of psychic suggestions to disorient and confuse them. However, what the Xylan didn't expect was that the human mind was more resilient than they had anticipated. The Earth's finest soldiers, enhanced by Harper's genetic modifications, resisted the mental manipulation. They fought through the telepathic haze, their enhanced intelligence and willpower creating a mental firewall that shielded them from the Xylan's influence. In fact, their resistance only fueled the Xylan's growing frustration. Dr. Harper, observing from the UEDC Fury, smiled grimly. She had expected the Xylan to make their move. And now, she knew that the only way humanity could truly survive was by embracing the very thing the galaxy feared most, their relentless drive to evolve. Meanwhile, the Drakkar continued their onslaught, unaware of the growing tide of resistance. General Kale, once confident in his empire's superiority, was beginning to realize that humanity's ultimate weapon, its finest soldiers, was more than just an army. It was a force of nature, one that could no longer be ignored. As the battle continued to rage in Earth's orbit, the galaxy's two most formidable powers, the Drakkar and the Xylan, began to realize that humanity was no longer just a pawn in their games. They were a force to be reckoned with. And now, with Earth's finest soldiers holding the line, it was clear that humanity had not only survived the first wave of threats, it had begun to shape its own destiny. The war was escalating faster than anyone had predicted. After the destruction of the Drakkar's forward fleet, Earth's forces had secured a temporary advantage, but General Thorne knew it wouldn't last. The Drakkar never accepted defeat, they adapted, they evolved, and they would return with something deadlier. Worse still, the Xylan had turned their attention to humanity, observing in eerie silence. They had yet to declare their stance, but Thorne had seen enough war to know that silence was never a good sign. If Earth was to survive, it needed something more than strategy and firepower. It needed an edge. Dr. Lucille Harper had one. Inside a classified UEDC research facility, hidden beneath layers of security, Harper stood before a chamber filled with a strange, pulsing blue fluid. Suspended within were Earth's most elite soldiers, the first subjects of the evolution protocol. This was more than genetic enhancement, it was an attempt to push humanity beyond its natural limits. "This is reckless," Commander Celine Voss said, arms crossed. She had been one of Earth's finest warriors long before any enhancement programs had existed. "We're tampering with things we don't fully understand." Harper adjusted her glasses, watching as the fluid pulsed in sync with the subject's brain activity. Understanding comes with time. Survival doesn't wait. The evolution protocol was based on a breakthrough discovered years earlier, a method of accelerating neural development, sharpening reflexes, and enhancing problem-solving abilities far beyond what any normal human could achieve. But it had never been tested at this scale. The soldiers in the chamber weren't just gaining strength, their entire perception of reality was shifting. Suddenly, one of the monitors began flashing red. Heart rate spiked. Brain activity surged. Inside the chamber, one of the subjects, Lieutenant Jason Ward, opened his eyes. His pupils dilated, then pulsed with an unnatural glow. His hand twitched, then clenched into a fist. "Vitals are stable," Harper murmured. "But something's happening." Ward's body convulsed, and then, in a blur of movement, he was awake, ripping himself free from the chamber. Alarms blared. Security personnel raised their weapons, but Thorne held up a hand, stopping them. He stepped forward cautiously, meeting Ward's gaze. "Lieutenant?" Ward's breathing was steady. Too steady. When he finally spoke, his voice was unnervingly calm. Something's different. Voss reached for a scanner and waved it over Ward's head. The readings didn't make sense. His neural activity was off the charts. His reaction time, already elite, was beyond anything measurable. But most unsettling of all, his perception of time itself seemed altered. Ward turned to Voss, reading her expression before she even spoke. "You're wondering if I can control it." "I can." Harper stepped forward, fascinated. "And what do you feel?" Ward exhaled slowly. "Like I've been asleep my whole life. And now, I finally woke up." ##### The Drakkhar's new strategy. While Earth's finest were being transformed, the Drakkhar were not idle. Deep within their war councils, General Kale seethed with fury. His fleet had been crushed by what he had once dismissed as an inferior species. That would not happen again. "The humans think themselves victorious," one of his commanders growled. "They think we will simply attack again with the same strategy." Kale narrowed his reptilian eyes. "We won't." The Drakkhar were warriors, but they were also pragmatists. If brute force had failed, then they would adapt. A massive hologram flickered to life in the war chamber, displaying a monstrous new design, a fleet not just of warships, but of something more sinister. Living war beasts, engineered from the depths of the Drakkhar's most forbidden science. Ships that were not piloted, but grown. Vessels that could repair themselves, feed on the energy of enemy weapons, and most terrifyingly, hunt their prey like a pack of wolves. "This," Kale snarled, "is how we end humanity." ###The first test. Back on Earth, Ward wasn't the only one who had changed. The other subjects of the evolution protocol were emerging from their chambers, each displaying different enhancements. Some had reflexes so fast they could dodge live fire at close range. Others could predict enemy movements before they happened. A few, including Ward, had something even stranger, an ability to sense danger before it arrived. Voss remained skeptical. It's one thing to enhance a soldier. It's another to make sure they don't lose their humanity in the process. "Humanity isn't what will win this war," Harper countered. "Adaptation will." And then the warning klaxons blared. A Drakkhar warbeast ship had entered the Sol system. Thorn wasted no time. "Deploy the Earth's finest. Let's see what they can really do." ###The hunt begins. Ward and his team launched from the UEDC Fury aboard sleek new dropships, each one designed for high-speed, close-range combat. As they approached the Drakkhar warbeast, the first thing they noticed was its breathing. The massive vessel inhaled and exhaled like a living creature, its hull rippling like muscle. The Drakkhar had sent a monster. It moved fast, faster than any warship should. Energy beams arced from its biocannons, searing through the void. Normal soldiers wouldn't have stood a chance. But Ward wasn't normal anymore. His mind processed information in real time, predicting the enemy's trajectory before it fired. His reflexes adjusted mid-maneuver, pushing his ship beyond its limit without hesitation. And when the dropships landed on the beast's hull, he and his squad moved like predators unleashed. The battle was unlike anything before. The warbeast reacted to them, sensing their movements, trying to shake them off. But the Earth's finest weren't just reacting anymore, they were anticipating. Ward led the charge, planting explosives along the beast's neural pathways. His squad moved in perfect sync, reading each other's intent before a word was spoken. The Drakkhar's greatest weapon had no counter to what humanity had become. In the final moments, Ward leaped from the beast's back just as the explosives detonated. The massive creature roared one last time before collapsing into itself, its biological systems shutting down. Victory! As the team returned to the Fury, Thorn watched them carefully. He had seen great warriors before. But this? This was something new. And he wasn't sure if it should terrify him, or give him hope. Humanity's ultimate weapon had been unleashed. And the galaxy had no idea what was coming next. The conflict around Earth had escalated into an all-out war, the likes of which the galaxy had never seen. The Drakkar, relentless and brutal, continued to press forward, their massive warships threatening to crush Earth's defenses. Yet, despite the overwhelming odds, humanity's finest soldiers stood firm, their strength, intelligence, and adaptability proving to be a formidable challenge for even the most seasoned invaders. The Drakkar were realizing something they had never encountered before: humanity was not just fighting back, they were learning, evolving, and adapting faster than they could respond. Meanwhile, the Xylan, whose telepathic prowess had once seemed like an insurmountable advantage, were finding their influence waning. The psychic barriers humanity's finest soldiers had developed were stronger than anyone had anticipated. The Xylan had underestimated the resilience of human minds, and as a result, their attempts to manipulate the battlefield were becoming less and less effective. It was becoming clear that no force, be it physical or mental, could contain humanity's will to survive. In the command center of Earth's defense coalition, General David Thorne stood before a large holographic map of the galaxy. The situation had become dire, Earth's resources were dwindling, the UEDC fleet was stretched thin, and the Drakkar had begun targeting civilian colonies far from the front lines. But despite the growing threats, Thorne remained resolute. Humanity had proven time and again that it could face impossible odds and emerge victorious. Now, it was time to take the fight to their enemies. "General, we've tracked the Drakkar's flagship," said Captain Celine Voss, one of the UEDC's top strategists, her voice steady despite the weight of the situation. "If we can take it out, we could cripple their fleet's command structure. The remaining forces would fall apart without leadership." Thorne studied the map for a moment, his mind working quickly. The Drakkar flagship, the Annihilator, was positioned just outside of Earth's orbital defenses, a massive fortress-class ship bristling with weapons. It was a tempting target, but one that would be difficult to strike without losing valuable resources. It would require every ounce of humanity's strategic ingenuity. "We'll need more than brute force," Thorne said, his eyes narrowing. "We need to hit them where it hurts, disrupt their communications, sabotage their command network. The Annihilator can't operate effectively if it's isolated." As the strategy was drawn up, Dr. Lucille Harper worked tirelessly in her lab, the weight of the war pressing heavily on her shoulders. The Earth's finest had evolved in ways she hadn't predicted, but they were still facing an enemy unlike any they had encountered before. Harper knew the next step in their development wasn't just physical, it was psychological. If humanity was to have any hope of defeating the galaxy's most powerful forces, they would need to harness something more than raw strength. Her work on the evolution protocol was nearing completion. The protocol was designed to unlock the full potential of human cognition, enhancing memory, problem-solving, and strategic thinking. This would allow humanity to not only fight harder but think faster and outmaneuver their enemies in ways never before possible. She was creating the ultimate weapon, one that could transcend the limitations of both body and mind. Yet, as Harper prepared the final batch of the protocol serum, she was interrupted by an urgent communication. It was from General Thorne. "Doctor, we need your help," he said, his tone grim. "We've located the Drakkar flagship. If we're going to take it down, we need your soldiers to lead the charge. Can your evolution serum give them the edge they need?" Harper's mind raced. The serum was nearly complete, but the risks of testing it in such a high-stakes situation were immense. If anything went wrong, the consequences could be disastrous. Yet, she knew the stakes had never been higher. Humanity's survival depended on their ability to overcome the odds, to evolve into something far beyond their enemy's comprehension. "I'll have the serum ready," she replied, her voice steady despite the uncertainty. "But I'll need to monitor them closely. This could be the final test for humanity's finest." As the UEDC Fury prepared for its assault on the Annihilator, Dr. Harper administered the evolution protocol to a select group of Earth's finest soldiers. The changes were immediate. The soldiers' eyes glazed over for a moment as their neural pathways rewired, and then, as if awakened by a new force, they stood taller, their minds clearer, and their senses heightened beyond anything they had experienced before. "Their minds are expanding," Harper observed with a mixture of awe and caution. They're processing information faster than any AI we've developed. They're thinking in ways I didn't even know were possible. General Thorne, watching from the command deck of the Fury, nodded grimly. We don't have time for second guesses. It's now or never. The time had come for humanity's finest to lead the charge. As the UEDC fleet engaged the Drakkar, a coordinated strike team, made up of the enhanced Earth's finest soldiers, infiltrated the Annihilator's defenses. These soldiers, now equipped with extraordinary intellects, outmaneuvered the Drakkar forces at every turn. They were no longer just soldiers, they were tacticians, predicting enemy movements before they even occurred, cutting off communication lines, and dismantling key systems with precision. In the heart of the Annihilator, as chaos erupted around them, Earth's finest reached the bridge. The Drakkar captain, General Kale, stood at the helm, watching in disbelief as his forces crumbled under the unexpected human assault. The soldiers knew they had only moments before the Drakkar reinforcements arrived. With one final, synchronized strike, they disabled the flagship's command core, sending it spiraling out of control and rendering it useless. The victory was swift, but costly. The Annihilator's destruction sent shockwaves through the Drakkar fleet, and the remaining forces began to retreat. However, the cost of the mission had taken its toll on the enhanced soldiers. The evolution protocol had worked, perhaps too well. Some of them were now struggling to control the overwhelming flood of thoughts and new abilities coursing through their minds. We did it, General Thorne said, his voice heavy with both relief and concern. But we're not done yet. The Xylan are watching. The war's not over. As the battle subsided and Earth's finest stood victorious, humanity had taken its first major step into a new era. But the galaxy was far from conquered, and the forces that sought to control or destroy humanity were still out there. The Drakkar had been dealt a blow, but the Xylan were more dangerous than ever. They had underestimated humanity's evolution once, but they wouldn't make that mistake again. The fight for the future of the galaxy was just beginning. Humanity had won a battle, but the true war was yet to come. And Earth's finest, now more powerful than ever, would be ready to lead the charge into the unknown. In the wake of their victory over the Drakkar flagship, Earth had secured a temporary respite, but the galaxy was far from calm. The destruction of the Annihilator had sent shockwaves through the Drakkar Empire, but it had also drawn the attention of the Xylan, whose patience had worn thin. The telepathic presence of Queen Orinthia lingered in the minds of Earth's leaders like a shadow, a reminder that the Xylan had yet to reveal their true intentions. Humanity's finest soldiers had taken their first step toward becoming the ultimate weapon, but they had only begun to scratch the surface of their potential. Dr. Lucille Harper had successfully unlocked new cognitive abilities in her soldiers, but at a cost. The serum had amplified their intellect to unprecedented levels, but it also left some of them struggling to control the flood of information, their minds racing faster than their bodies could keep up. Harper feared that pushing them further could lead to dangerous consequences. Still, the war raged on, and there was no time for caution. As Earth's fleet regrouped, General Thorne knew the next step was critical. The Drakkar were retreating for now, but they would return, and their forces would be even more prepared for the humans' new tactics. Humanity couldn't afford to rest on its laurels. The Xylan, too, remained a looming threat. It was clear that their offer to humanity had been a test, a way of gauging how easily the human race could be controlled. They had underestimated the tenacity and unpredictability of Earth's defenders. In the Xylan fleet, Queen Orinthia stood before her council, her mind calculating the best course of action. She was impressed by humanity's resilience but was not convinced that Earth's finest could ever be a true ally. Humans were driven by something that the Xylan could never fully understand: emotion. The very thing that made them weak was the same thing that made them dangerous. The Drakkar have failed, Orinthia said, her voice cold and commanding. But this war is far from over. Humanity's resilience must be crushed, or they will become a threat to us all. We will offer them one final choice: submit to our control, or face complete annihilation. While the Xylan made their plans, Earth's leaders convened for a final decision. General Thorne stood at the center of a holographic table, his face a mixture of exhaustion and determination. His forces had been stretched thin, but now was the time to take the fight to the heart of the Xylan Empire. The Earth's finest were ready for a new challenge, one that would push them beyond the limits of even their enhanced abilities. "We've faced the Drakkar, and now the Xylan are testing us," Thorn said. "We can't afford to back down any longer. We must strike first, before they can gain full control over us. We must go to them." The room fell silent. The idea of taking the fight to the Xylan homeworld was audacious, even for the humans who had defied the odds time and time again. But Thorn knew there was no other choice. Earth couldn't wait for the Xylan to strike first. The time had come to make a stand. Dr. Harper, though reluctant to push her soldiers any further, knew the consequences of failure. "We've pushed them to the edge, but if we're going to stand a chance, we'll need to unlock the final step in the evolution protocol," she said. "We'll need to enhance their instincts, not just their intellect. They need to become something beyond human." Thorn nodded, though he knew the risks. "Do it. Prepare them for what's to come." The final stage of the evolution protocol was a delicate operation. Dr. Harper injected her soldiers with a new serum that would unlock not just their cognitive abilities but also their primal instincts. It was a gamble. If successful, these soldiers would become more than just enhanced humans, they would transcend humanity itself. They would become the apex predators of the galaxy. But there were dangers. The serum could cause madness, even death, if not administered correctly. As the soldiers underwent the procedure, their bodies and minds were flooded with an overwhelming surge of power. Their reflexes quickened, their senses heightened to an almost supernatural degree, and their ability to process information became instantaneous. But with this newfound power came an intense internal struggle. Their emotions surged as they grappled with their evolving instincts, some losing control in the process. Harper watched with a mixture of awe and fear as her creations began to transform into something new, something far beyond her original vision. Meanwhile, the Drakkar, reeling from their recent defeat, began regrouping. Their massive fleet was slowly making its way back toward Earth, ready to strike back with a vengeance. They knew the humans had made a powerful enemy in the Xylan, and they would not let that threat go unanswered. General Kale, though shaken by his previous defeat, was determined to finish what he had started. He had learned valuable lessons in the last battle, and he would not make the same mistakes again. As the Earth's finest soldiers, now enhanced beyond belief, prepared to depart for the Xylan homeworld, the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. The final confrontation was approaching, and the outcome would determine the future of all sentient life. The Earth's finest had come a long way since their creation. They were no longer simply soldiers, they were the future of humanity. And as they prepared for the ultimate battle, they knew that victory was not guaranteed. The Xylan were more dangerous than any enemy they had faced, and the Drakkar would not stop until humanity was wiped from the galaxy. But Earth's finest were ready. They had already proven that nothing could stand in their way. The war was about to enter its final phase, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The galaxy stood on the brink of cataclysm. The Drakkar were regrouping, thirsting for vengeance. The Xylan, seeing the humans as a growing threat, were preparing to assert their dominion. And Earth, tired, battered, but unbroken, was about to make its final stand. Aboard the UEDC Fury, General Thorn stood before a war map, surrounded by his commanders, strategists, and Dr. Harper. The decision had been made. The Earth's finest would strike first, launching an all-out assault on the Xylan homeworld of Zykel Prime. "We can't let the Xylan dictate the course of this war," Thorn declared. "They think they can subjugate us. They think they can break our will. But they don't understand what they're up against." Celine Voss, now battle-hardened from countless skirmishes, nodded. "We've faced the Drakkar, we've outmaneuvered the Xylan at every turn. It's time to end this." But Harper's face was tense. The final stage of the evolution protocol had given humanity's finest unprecedented abilities, but the side effects were becoming evident. Some of the enhanced soldiers struggled with emotional outbursts. Others reported strange sensory experiences, seeing past the normal spectrum of light, feeling movements before they happened. And a few were hearing voices, whispers of something beyond human understanding. "They're becoming something more," Harper admitted. "But I don't know if they'll be able to control it." "They'll have to," Thorne said grimly. "Because this war won't wait for us to figure it out." The battle for Zykel Prime. The Fury led a fleet of UEDC warships through a dangerous warp corridor, emerging just outside the Zykel system. The Xylan fleet was waiting for them, its eerie, bioorganic ships forming a web of defenses. But the Xylan weren't prepared for what came next. The Earth's finest, now enhanced beyond normal human limits, moved like living weapons. Their reflexes defied physics, their minds processed enemy movements in real time, predicting tactics before they even unfolded. The battlefield became a chaotic dance of destruction, with human soldiers dismantling Xylan strongholds with precision and brutality. But the Xylan had one last trick. Deep within their planetary core, a hidden power pulsed, a vast psychic consciousness, the collective mind of the Xylan. Queen Orinthia, watching the battle unfold, extended her will and unleashed a telepathic wave, attempting to bend the minds of every human soldier. The battlefield froze. Soldiers clutched their heads, writhing in agony as the Xylan attempted to force them into submission. Even Thorne felt the crushing weight of her will pressing into his thoughts. But something unexpected happened. The Earth's finest did not break. Their enhanced minds, instead of shattering under the pressure, adapted. The evolutionary serum had changed them beyond what even Harper had predicted. The Xylan's psychic assault no longer worked, it was being absorbed, redirected. One soldier, Lieutenant Jason Ward, stood tall amidst the chaos. His mind, once human, now operated on a different level. He turned his gaze toward the sky, where Orinthia's influence loomed like a dark cloud. And then he spoke, his voice carrying across the battlefield like a force of nature. "You're in our minds," he said. "Then welcome to hell." The Earth's finest pushed back. Instead of being overwhelmed, they attacked the Xylan on their own terms, mentally. Their evolved consciousness allowed them to strike back at Orinthia's influence, disrupting the Xylan hive mind. Across the fleet, Xylan ships lost cohesion, their forces confused and directionless. Queen Orinthia screamed in rage, her perfect control unraveling for the first time in Xylan history. The end of the old order. As the battle raged, the Drakkar fleet arrived, expecting to find humanity broken. Instead, they found a war they could not comprehend. The Xylan, the ancient masters of telepathic warfare, were losing control. The humans, their supposed inferiors, had become something new. Something terrifying. General Kale, watching from the bridge of his warship, knew then that the Drakkar's time as the galaxy's dominant force was over. He had two choices: fight and be annihilated, or make an alliance with the devils who had broken the Xylan. He chose survival. The Drakkar turned their weapons on the Xylan, tearing through their defenses. With their mind network in shambles, the once mighty Xylan forces fell apart. In the final moments of battle, Queen Orinthia, weakened and exposed, attempted to flee. But Jason Ward, now fully in control of his newfound abilities, reached into the Xylan hive mind and shattered it. For the first time in their history, the Xylan screamed, not in conquest, but in fear. Their queen was gone. Their unity was broken. The war was over. A new beginning. In the aftermath, the galaxy stood in stunned silence. The Drakkar, no longer the uncontested warlords of the stars, withdrew. But instead of an enemy, they now saw humanity as equals, perhaps even something greater. The Xylan, their collective mind shattered, were no longer a galactic threat. Without their queen to guide them, they became scattered remnants of a once mighty empire. And humanity? Humanity had become something new. The Earth's finest were no longer just enhanced soldiers. They were something greater, pioneers of a new era, the first of a species that had transcended its limitations. But with that power came questions. Were they still human? Could they still belong to the world they had fought so hard to protect? As General Thorne stood on the bridge of the Fury, looking out at a galaxy forever changed, he knew one thing for certain. Earth would never again be seen as weak. Humanity was no longer fighting for survival. Now, it was fighting for the future. And for the first time, the galaxy feared them.